Welcome back to the world of Anthem. Hey guys, what's up? It's Robbie here with Open World Games, and we've got a ton of news to go over. We're talking about the Colossus Javelin type, which of course is this bad boy right here. Cannot wait to hop in this armor set. Let me know, are you going to go, nimble and fast with your Javelin, or are you going to choose something that's more like tank-like, like we see here with the Colossus? Plus, we've got new updates about flying, progression relating to the flying system, and then also underwater combat. And then, is Anthem in trouble? There's been a ton of rumors about Anthem being in trouble and stuff like that. We're going to go ahead and go over some official responses from Bioware and some of the developers as well. But, man, I'm so hyped for this one. So, guys, let's dive into the news right now, shall we? So first up, what about that Colossus news? So out on Reddit, Brennan Holmes, the creative director on Anthem, was active, and ShadowClass212 says this: without spoiling anything you can't spoil, though we wouldn't mind a subtle drop of more info, what is your favorite thing to do currently in the game? And Brendan replied saying this: right now, I'm having a lot of fun just running around with the Colossus suit and using the mortar on everything. You can sort of see this in last year's E3 demo. They've been doing some iterations on him lately, and he's really coming together. I'm really enjoying one of the new melee abilities they've propped up recently. End quote. So interesting. It looks like our Colossus Javelin type is getting some brand new iterations, some new functionalities related to, his melee abilities. We did get to see his melee in this demonstration. It should be appearing sometime throughout this gameplay here. But yeah, back to that Colossus armor. It looks pretty badass. He's got the mortar fire on there, all sorts of cool stuff, and you expect to progress with this suit as well. The progression is apparently going to be very deep per Javelin type, so that is really cool. And I think together, when you go into co-op, you're definitely going to want to consider having, friends that are varied in their different types of Javelin suits. That would make a ton of sense. And here's some beautiful concept art. Cannot wait to see more from this world. In fact, what about that underworld, the underwater segment of the world? What can we expect from that as well? Well, there were additional comments about that. There was a really good recent IGN article that came about. You can find that in the description below, and there were some more details about that. But also, mentioning the melee abilities, there was a reply from ShadowClass212 about Brendan Holmes' comment. He says, "My good sir, thank you for the reply, and melee abilities confirmed. Swords, ? I'm thinking it'd be more Pacific Rim style blades personally. However, katanas, etc. are always acceptable. Would it be possible to have some concept art released soon?" I want some concept art, something. And Brendan Holmes says this: well, you saw melee already in last year's E3 demo. Smiley face. So I think what Brendan was kind of saying there, at least in terms of the Colossus, I don't think he is getting a sword in the game, but perhaps that could be something for another Javelin type. I'm curious to see also with Javelins if they're going to be treating them like Rainbow Six Siege's operators, and they would add more down the road. So that's going to be interesting to see how they handle that for sure. That would make a lot of sense. But we did get to see that melee move from the Colossus there here as we roam through what appears to be like a swampland environment. So beautiful. All right. Moving on, what do we have next? So here are some of those details from that IGN article. It says, however, Javelins won't come equipped with endless supply of oxygen. As Holmes says, players can't stay underwater forever. As of now, oxygen will only regenerate while out of water. As for the possibility of encountering enemies beneath the surface, Holmes said BioWare is not ready to talk about that just yet. So that is such a big tease. It sounds like we could expect some sort of enemy type under the water. Cannot wait for that. And it looks like some of these enemies from some of these concept arts, let me see if I can find that for you guys, are going to be absolutely huge. Of course, we've got the Colossus, who would, of course, battle this guy right here. A perfect matchup. So you can see how big these enemy types could possibly be in the game from the concept arts that we have right here. So Curious to see how huge these enemies could actually end up being. You know, Destiny, of course, has had some really fairly big enemies, but I'm thinking this game looks so big in terms of the environment, and it looks very open as well, that the enemy types may be even bigger than what we saw with, of course, Destiny and stuff. So, next up, what about flying? So, there was a new update about that in the IGN article. Excuse me. Okay, there's that one. It says this right here: there will be some amount of progression and skill expression with flying, which will affect how far you can go and what you can do in the air, said Holmes. BioWare wants players to feel a sense of freedom with our exploration mechanics, but not at the expense of performance. So it sounds like, so what's really neat about flying, and a lot of this stuff, is with exploration alone, you can expect some sort of progression system with your character. Of course, what we're seeing here, you can expect progression to go into your weapons, of course, your actual javelin itself, and then combat. But what I'm excited about is when games talk about progression actually affecting the sense of exploration and how the open world actually opens up. And I remember Rise of Tomb Raider was really good at this. You know, as you explored in Rise of the Tomb Raider, basically more and more of the open world, well, it wasn't open world, but more of the hub space is unlocked for you, dependent on what you were unlocking in your skill tree. So basically you could burn some brush and finally gain access to areas you couldn't beforehand, and then you could go back to the previous hub spaces and use that upgrade to keep going. So I found that really impressive, and I'm hoping that they're doing the same type of concept here with Anthem. I would be super hyped if they actually did that. So, what do we have next up here? Let me see here. So yeah, they mentioned that that they aren't going to really be having flying impact performance, and that, of course, is something that's super important. You don't want a game that's going to be running jittery or anything like that. So they're going to have a ceiling, of course, that you can't go over. So don't expect to be going clear into space or something crazy like that with Anthem. So that makes a lot of sense to keep the performance running well. You know, with a game like this, you really want, at least on consoles, it running at 30 frames or higher permanently, no matter what. That is very, very important. Also, there were some talks about Anthem going in a bad way, I guess you would say, that it was in trouble, and there's been rumors about that. You know, recently out on Twitter, some of the Bioware developers have been active responding to these claims and stuff like that, and one of the claims was right here. Shoke says this: with the loss of Drew, one of the greatest writers in video games, I have some very major concerns about Anthem. Will this be a story-driven game that Bioware was known for? Because that's why I love your games. And Casey Hudson replied, and he's from Bioware, story will always be an important part of every Bioware game. Drew has wrapped up his work on the project, but Anthem's lead writers and their teams continue to do amazing work developing the world, story, and characters. End quote. And it's interesting when someone departs the gaming development studio, it's like, all hell is breaking loose. Everyone comments on that. Well, that's just not the case here. You know, I've seen so many departures over the years from various gaming studios, whether it's from EA, Ubisoft, or whatever. It just does not mean that the game is in deep, dire trouble or anything like that. It just means that the writer's moving on to his next project. He's finished work. You know, he's not a developer. He's not helping, you know, see this game through to the absolute end. And of course, there is an extensive writing team on this game beyond just one writer as well. So you have to consider those things as well. I remember with Assassin's Creed 2, there was a lot of people that left the studio during that time. And look at how Assassin's Creed Origins has turned out and stuff like that. So it really is just no big deal when people leave studios. It happens all the time, and a lot of developers want to try something new as well and move on, and that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, you know, crossing our fingers that Anthem turns out well. The good sign, at least in my opinion, this is my opinion, of course, is that they have delayed the game to 2019. I do consider that a good thing, because it shows that EA and Bioware are willing to take their time with this. They're treating it as their new baby, and they want to get it right. And I do think that's also a reaction to what happened with Battlefront 2 with microtransactions. So it looks to me they're really willing to listen to fans and stay in tune to what is going on with the gaming market in general. They don't want to mess this game up at all, especially with that backlash that happened with Battlefront 2. So yeah, I am super hyped for this one. Let me know if you guys are too, and I really hope that an EA Play this year. Remember, that's going to be in June, so that's going to be fast approaching. It'll be here before you know it. I do hope we get to see more of these bigger monsters and what's up with these storms. How do they influence the game? So that is really exciting for sure. So, yeah, stay tuned here, guys, to Open World Games for more Anthem news and coverage. So hyped for this one. Here's one of the bigger threats in the game, of course. You don't want to mess with him at all. Now, will we see something like this underwater this big? That's going to be the next big discoveries for this game for sure. Thank you guys again for watching. I will see you later and soon, hopefully in the world of Anthem in 2019 and underwater, through the skies, and through the land. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.